What is up? This is the War Dog. Welcome to Comic Book Theater. Today we have an amazing guest, but I'm not going to announce it. I'm going to let John announce it. John, you're up, man. What do we got going on today, bro?
What's going on, War Dog? We have a very special guest today. We have from the YouTube channel Comics with Bueller. We have Bueller. I can't overstate how awesome this is. I've been watching his channel for months and months, and there. It seems like you're always evolving your content, which I really dig. But I'm going to let you introduce yourself and tell folks a little bit about yourself. Bueller, what's going on, man?
Well, hey, appreciate being on the Comic Book Theater for the first time, and hopefully this isn't the last time, but it's pretty cool to be here. Like you said, my name is Bueller from Comics with Bueller. I do a YouTube channel as well as I'm on Instagram. That's because my kids made me use Instagram because I didn't know how to use it until then. But for the most part, I've been on YouTube for about a year and a half, and it's all comic books, and it's new stuff, it's old stuff. There's a wide variety of different options. I cover Comic-Cons, I interview creators, I do weekly, and I'm adding new shows to my channel all the time. And it's kind of like I push myself and I try to do new things so it doesn't get stale. And I've already introduced 2 or 3 more shows in the last month that have gone pretty good. So I can't complain what's a bit. And Comic Book Theater, I'm on. Awesome. Appreciate it, you guys.
Man, we appreciate you too, man. I think my first introduction to you, dude, perfect, man. It's like I asked you to do that. The first time I think that I saw a video of yours was Coffee with Comics.
That's right. That's one of my favorites. I'm drinking it right now.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So I'm like, I can dig this. I'm down with this. Let's take a look here. And it's awesome to see somebody. And for those of you guys who are relatively new to the channel, Todd here, actually, whenever we're recording this, you'll be over here for me, Todd. Anyway, you're in Atlanta. I'm in Missouri, and Bueller, you're all the way on the West Coast. So this was kind of an undertaking. It's to me, I think it's good and healthy to see that this is not just a regional thing. This is nationwide. You've got connections on your YouTube channel. Do you ever get a look and see where people are viewing your show from? Is that something that you have done, or have any fans that have contacted you from out of the way places?
I do. I'm blessed with the fact that I've had over 500,000 views in the last 6 months, and a lot of those views have come from all over the world. And you name it: Australia, New Zealand, England, all over the United States, Canada, Mexico, and a lot of people from Florida. A lot of comic collectors down in Florida. They love comics. And a lot of people in my area, the Pacific Northwest, is pretty awesome. But it's really cool to think that here is a hobby that I started when I was a kid and then stopped collecting for many years. And this is a very similar story that a lot of us have. And then we get back into the hobby, and it's almost like we never left. And we find all these other people that are all in the same boat. They're starting collecting again. And honestly, we're all about the same age. We're within like 5 or 10 years of each other. There's not a lot of younger kids like there used to be. It's more of the guys in their 40s or whatnot that are back collecting again.
Oh yeah.
But I've made many friends all over the world, and all because of me just pressing record one night on a video and sticking it on YouTube. So I can't complain one bit.
Absolutely, man. And that's kind of, you talk about being on Instagram, and most of our listeners and watchers are from our Facebook group, The Collector's Corner. it's a bit of a different world between Facebook and Instagram. I know I feel like me and Todd are a little bit more of that feels like our home base is Facebook, really. You know what I mean? You said that your kids kind of forced you into Instagram. How have you liked Instagram, and kind of, if you don't mind, what are some of the advantages, and how's the feel for the community on Instagram?
I like, it's very similar. It's like on Instagram, I have, I don't know, around like 1,600 followers, and it's almost a one-for-one for people on Instagram who are watching me on YouTube. So they kind of go hand in hand type thing. So everyone who's watching me on Instagram, they're watching me on YouTube, and obviously there's more people on YouTube, but it's just an easier way to connect, obviously, because you can, instant message someone right there on Instagram. So it's a little bit more personal with someone. And a lot of people will be like, oh, I just watched Bueller's video on YouTube, and I see he's on Instagram, and they will send me a message, and I'm like, hey, thanks for watching. And they appreciate that, because I like the fact that I can respond in real time with the person, like an instant messenger type thing. That's what makes Instagram a little bit more enjoyable, because of that interaction I get in real time, and can video chat with someone or whatnot. And it's simpler because it's just like, you're just taking a picture. There's no really production value going into an Instagram post besides your tags. And my buddy Tom, Comic Tom 101, he helped me figure out how to do tags on Instagram. I didn't know how to, and he's like, I'll send you a list. And he sends me a list, and he told me to copy and paste. He goes, put that in every single one of your Instagram posts. I'm like, okay, I will. And since then, people start following it and stuff like that. So I enjoy like I said, the main thing, the difference is the quick time interaction on Instagram, as opposed to YouTube, and you wait and you see a comment, and then you reply to the comment, and then you wait and see something back. On Instagram, you see that little green dot there, and that person's live right then. You can just say, hey, what's up? Thanks for watching, and they can get right back to you. So I enjoy that a lot. I try to, for as many messages as I get, I try to respond to pretty much everybody. A few I've missed, and I felt bad I missed them, because I thought I hit accept and I hit the wrong button. So if any of those people are watching and didn't hear back from me, send me another message. There you go.
I totally understand what you're saying, because I do the same thing on Facebook. Like, I'll post a video, and anybody that comments, I want to comment back. I want to interact. That's one of the fun things about us being this age, and the comic thing on being online. Is somebody will comment on your thing, you comment back, and next thing you know, you're friends. And I've met a lot of people. I've met like probably 5-10 people from the Facebook group, just from interactions. So I mean, I completely understand what you're saying with that.
The real-time interaction with that, it goes a long way, and it definitely has made it a lot easier to connect with some of the viewers that watch my regular stuff, and then I'm like, oh, we get to talk to them on Instagram type thing. So I'm glad that they kind of work together. It's really a symbiote relationship or something like that. I don't know, but they really do help each other out. So
Absolutely. And man, you're just bringing segue after segue after segue here. Man. It's almost like you do this like for a living. It's almost like you know how to do this. So like you say, you do coffee with comics. You do a hot list. Mm-hmm. You said you started a couple of new ones. I know the one that I've enjoyed recently is your Overstreet eBay comparisons.
Yeah.
How's the reception been on that one? Because I mean, let's be real. That's for comic book nerds everywhere.
Yeah.
Eventually you have that conversation with a friend that said one friend is staunchly Overstreet, another friend is staunchly eBay. And tell me how you came up with the formula for doing what you're doing with that series.
The basic one was I had an idea for it a while ago. I was just waiting for the new Overstreet to come out. And that's what it was. I actually thought about it like a few months back. And I was like, oh, when does the next issue of Overstreet come out? Because I can't do it until the new one comes out. So the basis is, and everyone is for one, the reception of it has been pretty positive, but people are very passionate about how they feel about eBay versus Overstreet as far as prices go.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always, from the very beginning, and if you've watched my videos, everyone should know I'm a budget guy. If it's not $1 or 50 cents or cover price myself, I probably don't buy it. So it doesn't matter to me what the eBay price is or what the Overstreet price is. That's not what I'm reporting. I'm not reporting what I think. I'm literally just taking what it says in the book and comparing it to the same grade, the same issue of the sold price on eBay, and doing an average of 20 books. And whatever the average is, that's what we're looking at. It's really easy for anyone to take 20 books and say, man, all 20 of these books are way more priced on eBay than they are Overstreet. And vice versa. You could take 20 books if you do a little research and find them way more expensive in Overstreet than what they actually sell for. But my list is 20 random books, and you get the overall, difference in price. And honestly, when I put the list together and did the first video, I was blown away. I was like, I am 15 books into these 20, and there's a $10 difference. I had no idea that's what it would be. I thought it would be way lopsided. And then I do a second video, same exact thing. So I'm very surprised.
Oh, I'm shocked at it too. Like you say,
Shocks me too.
To me, I really truly thought, and like you said, people can cherry pick one or two books and say, hey, well, what about this one book? Okay, well, movie speculation just hit on this one book. Of course it's going to be lopsided one way or the other. But I think, to me, that proves that in some ways we can overthink the valuation of our collections, because unless if you're somebody that only collects keys,
sure,
then you're gonna, you're gonna have a bunch of these random books.
Yeah.
So if Overstreet says this and you go through and you check them off and you're doing something for, like, let's say insurance or something like that, you're gonna be in the ballpark, unless if you just have a massive amount of movie spec keys, something like that. That's kind of just, I thought for sure eBay would show much different than Overstreet. And I think that comes to, like, we were talking about the hot lists. The last hot list I watched of yours was all hot list for the next week of new books.
Yeah.
That's kind of where you specialize your hot list at, right?
Yeah. And honestly, my hot list is, my hot list is probably not meant for anyone to go and spec on those books. And I think people are aware when they watch the video. It's basically stuff that I like, for the most part, and then a little bit of like, hey, I've heard that this book is like limited to one per customer, or it's hot. If you find it, go pick it out. But mainly 80% of the video is like, I'm a huge Daredevil fan, so that's probably going to be my pick, or The Flash is one of my favorite series going on right now, so that's usually on my picks. But when you see a book and you're like, oh, Batman 77's come out, I heard there's something going on, obviously that book is probably going to make that list because
Right.
there's some buzz. But I'll get people like, I had a book on my honorable mentions. It was because I sometimes have a small honorable mentions, and somebody didn't like the fact that it was an honorable mention and it wasn't on the actual list. I told them, I said, there's no like numbering system to the list. It's not like number 1 and number 10. It's alphabetical by publisher. It's how the list is put out. Yeah, they're like, oh, okay. So,
that kind of, it cracks me up that look. The one thing is, and I'm kind of a wrestling fan too, so I subscribe to, with content providers or content makers, you're eliciting an emotional response from somebody by putting that book as an honorable mention instead of in the main list. You did good. You did good. You got a little bit of an emotional response for them, so they're going to be back to watch next week to
Yeah.
see whether you did that to him again or not. So I think you did good by doing that.
Isn't that what like Rob Liefeld does? You know, he makes comments that gets everybody fired up, and next thing you know, he's the hot topic of the week.
He specializes in that, man. He's like the master at doing that. I watch his Twitter feed all the time, and just some of the things, that's like the only Twitter feed that I watch is Rob Liefeld's Twitter feed, and it is entertaining on a daily basis by far.
I got his on my Twitter too. I watch it all the time because he's always saying crazy stuff.
Yeah.
No, see, okay, so I'm just gonna be honest with you here, Bueller. Todd's only doing this. It's self-serving. He wants me to mention that for his Kickstarter, Rob Liefeld shot a video because they're like really close personal friends, and like Todd's been invited to his house and stuff, and that's not entirely true, but that's the lie I'm going with.
That's not entirely true. What do you mean it's not? I'm lost now.
Okay. All right. See, I set you up, Todd. Now you got to tell Bueller. Now you got to fess up.
Well, I wrote a comic book, and I did a Kickstarter, and it actually was successful, and the book was printed and delivered. But one of the guys that's a friend of mine on Facebook got Rob Liefeld to do a video, and I think it was one of those pay to talk about something videos. And I'm sitting at work one day, and I see this video. Rob Liefeld says my name. He talks about the book, and I'm almost bursting into tears because how could anybody? I can't believe that somebody would do this for me, you know. So, you know, I have a special connection with Rob. I agree his artwork is a little lacking these days, but for personality-wise, that guy is great for comics.
I enjoy him. That's the thing, and you know, I was just talking with a buddy of mine today. We sat down and had coffee, and the conversation came up with Rob Liefeld, and he mentioned something to me. He goes, "You remember what Rob Liefeld said about DC Comics a few months back that kind of got everybody riled up?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "I think and my buddy goes, "He might have been onto something because I haven't really felt too comfortable about DC lately." And I go, "You know, it might be a Jose Canseco type thing. You know, when Jose Canseco kind of blew the whistle on the steroids in baseball, and everyone's like, oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Then a couple of years later, he was right, and he was vindicated for everything." I go, if that's the case, that'll be interesting to find out. But Rob Liefeld comes up every day in my life.
It seems like he comes up at least once a recording for us on the podcast here, and it stems from he definitely, like Todd says, he elicits an emotional response from me. Yes, he's a philanthropist. He gives money to good causes, that kind of thing. I'm not going to fault him for that. I'm not going to fault him for that at all. I think his art is suspect, and when you revel in the fact that you weren't taught and didn't seek out certain training for your art, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
A friend of mine locally is an artist, and I've gotten quite a few things from him. He just picked up one of those Liefeld blanks, from a local shop, and I'm about 99% sure I know exactly what I'm gonna ask him to do one. I'm gonna send it around like we talked about with the Collector's Corner. We've got a plethora of artists that I can choose from, and basically I think I'm just gonna have them all draw feet all over the cover.
Feet and pouches. That's it.
Feet and pouches. A foot with a pouch on it.
I don't know. A Captain America redo would be really good too. You know.
You know, out of all the, I've interviewed a few creators, and I've been very lucky to do that, you know, with some of the people I've talked to, and Chris Claremont being the most recent one that I had a chance to interview and spend some time with. You know, Rob Liefeld is right up there with one of the ones I'd like to talk with again, or meet and interview or just discuss. And him and obviously Todd McFarlane are both two gentlemen that are on my bucket list that I want to sit down with and have a conversation with. I know Todd McFarlane a little bit from like when I was young, so I have a little bit of connection with him. But Rob Liefeld is an enigma that's avoided me my whole life. So one day I will make that happen.
Dude, he really, they both are, like you were saying, we're all of the same general vicinity and age. I know the white in my beard makes me look considerably older, but I'm actually like, thanks, Todd. Good job. Good job. Almost on cue. Anyway, those two guys are part of our adolescence. You know
Absolutely.
what I mean? And I always harken back to there's a series I think that Sci-Fi did on the creation of Image Comics.
I've watched that multiple times.
It's amazing, and of those rogues that went together in Image comic books, there definitely is an overarching, hey, we worked together, we were very combustible, but we worked together and we did something great.
Yeah.
And so like I say, regardless, I think you're right. I think even though I'm not always positive about Rob Liefeld, if I was availed the opportunity to interview Rob Liefeld, I would thank him profusely. And not in a sucking up way.
Yeah.
I would also, if pressed on the issue with him, I might say that I'm not a huge fan of his artwork, but on the flip side, it's undeniable the influence that he's had on the comic book community, the industry as a whole.
For sure. I mean, this is a gentleman that was doing Levi commercials in the 90s because he was a comic book artist. He was hanging out with Eazy-E and, headline rappers and stuff like that. And the simple fact that he branched off with those other gentlemen to start Image Comics, which really changed the industry for what it was. And for a short period of time, Image Comics was actually, like they said, number 2, right behind Marvel in publication and everything. And he's a major part of that. Now, one thing I've talked about this with some people, he gets a lot of his relevance in comics today. Okay, obviously isn't what it was in the 90s, but yet his comments are weighted so heavy in what he says now, even though his actual relevance in what he does and stuff like that is nowhere near what it was in the 90s. Because I mean, in the 90s he changed everything. It's a little different now type thing. But depending on what he says, it doesn't matter because he has that stigma with him from what he did. He can say all that stuff, and all of a sudden it just blows up. But if you take like a Donny Cates, who is like the it guy for Marvel, and if he were to say something like that, it'd be interesting to see what happens, to say the least.
Oh yeah. And I know that he's just like Donny Cates. I'm glad you bring him up. He talk about a prolific writer. There are several I consider newer prolific writers that are having impacts in the comic book community. And I think it's an interesting dynamic that it went from in the 90s, the rock star artist. And it feels like the paradigm has shifted a little bit more towards writers.
Absolutely. It's absolutely the writer.
I mean, because just like this, okay, there's a local guy to me, and local, I mean, he lives in the same state, so he shows up around here a lot more often than other comic book industry professionals do, is Cullen Bunn. He's a guy who I mean, just last weekend he was at a free public they call it Library Con, and he signed in for free, talking to everybody. He's my daughter's favorite author.
Yeah.
And so with him, Donny Cates, Al Ewing, I mean, just the list is getting lengthy of what I would consider almost equivalent in rockstar writers that it was rockstar artists in the 90s.
Yeah, I agree with that statement. I think you're right on the money. I think it's the writer, and not to mention the writer, it's actually the artist himself is like at the back of the list. It's the writer and the cover artist are the two main people now. It's not the artist in the book anymore. It's the Alex Ross cover on Immortal Hulk that's sparking interest in that book. It's the Del Auto cover on this variant that's spiking this book. And then it's the writer. But people are like, oh, who did the interior art? I don't know. You know, nobody can tell me who does the interior art, but they'll know the writer and they'll know who did the cover. It's like it's the interior art, and that's exactly the opposite of what it used to be. It used to be, man, this is Eric Larson, this is Jim Lee, this is Rob Liefeld, this is Todd McFarlane, and now it's totally switched. So you're right on the money.
Yeah, I have to agree. And you look at like Silver Surfer Black that just came out. The story, the story is Donny Cates, but the artwork inside, I mean, it's psychedelic, I guess, but I'm not that impressed with it. I mean, what are your thoughts?
I'm glad you brought that up. Story, actually, I read the first one, and honestly, I wasn't too impressed with the first issue. I thought it was kind of just basic, you know, really didn't do much, you know, and I haven't read the second or third one, but I've heard it's picked up. So the first story, I wasn't too impressed, but one of the reasons I wasn't impressed was the artwork itself, and I think the artwork, good artwork will tell you the story without you even reading the word bubbles, okay? And the artwork in that book is so out there, it kind of took me out of the story. And I was so distracted by the artwork because it's so different. That doesn't mean I don't like it. I don't like that artwork in that setting. I don't think that type of artwork tells a good story. I like that artwork, like the number 3 cover came out, okay? And the artwork on that number 3 cover, I loved it. I thought it was really cool, but I think it would be great hanging on my wall as like a framed picture or something like that, but not as artwork that tells a story from one panel to another. I don't think it translates very well, but individually by itself, I think it's pretty good.
I agree. And I do think that overall, I'm not a huge Silver Surfer fan, but I've read here and there periodically when he shows up. And I mean, personally, I am a Venom fan from way back, Spider-Man, those kind of things. It's one of those deals to me. Silver Surfer is always going to be a little more trippy, at least should be.
Yeah.
And when I read him, he's going to be a little more. And I don't mean to be offensive to any people that might be listening that would take offense, but a little more hippy dippy kind of, you know. I mean, hey, look, man, I'm a Midwest guy. That's kind of the way we are. I'm just going to say it the way I would say it. If you get offended,
it's definitely got a Woodstock vibe going on.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And hey, if you're into that kind of stuff, God bless you, man. That's all good.
Well, I live up in Oregon. That's Woodstock 24/7.
24/7. No, I'm sure. Man.
Those Silver Surfer Blacks are like concert posters almost. You know, like the Beatles and the Doors. I mean, that would be what those concert posters look like.
Yeah.
Well, and part of the reason I bring that up though is I'm with you that the art kind of takes us a little bit out of the story. I'm not 100% sure that that's not by design in some way, shape, or form. And then it just becomes a matter of personal preference. I picked up Silver Surfer Black #1 based on information that somebody said. The panel where or it might even be a splash page, where Silver Surfer comes up to the gates there. I heard that Donny Cates was very specific in his notes to the artist that he wanted those gates to kind of just be the biggest, most important thing in the whole comic book.
Yeah.
And so I picked it up and I read through it and I'm like, okay, well, not sure how that translates to being the biggest, most important thing in the comic book, but okay, I'm willing to, you know, a one issue of it. I'm not gonna I haven't gone on to 2 or 3. Yeah. That's just me because it's not really my thing. But I will say that the Absolute Carnage stuff that's going on right now is amazing. And I know some people have christened him Sir Cates. We've christened him around here the Dollar Bin Whisperer. because it never fails. If Donnie Cates mentions a dollar bin book in his Twitter,
Yeah.
you better be prepared to spend 10 to 20 on it the following day, because people are going to be on it all over eBay being like, Donnie Cates, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
You know,
He's, I got a chance to meet him last year around this time, and I sat down and talked to him, and we did an interview together and stuff like that. And, I asked him that. I was like, so you have any insight on what other 50 Cent book you want to make the Key Hop book? And I'm like, please tell me. And he wouldn't do it. He's like, I had no clue about that Carnage Mind Bomb. I'm like, yeah, whatever. Sure you did. But, his writing is awesome. And the neat thing is he just recently got engaged to Megan Hutchinson. And she's another person in the comic book industry. She's a friend of mine. She was at that con too. And I got to know her, and I interviewed her, and I've chatted with her a couple of times, through Instagram, which is great.
right.
And he recently just did a piece for me and sent it to me from Florida type thing. And it was like the weekend that her and him got engaged. And she's like, hey, Bueller, I want you to have this, and because I forgot to get a piece from her when I met her. And she always felt bad that I forgot something, and everything. But she's doing good. Last I heard, she's not making it here to Portland again for the Rose City Comic Con, which is next month, which is too bad. I asked her. She's like, yeah, we're sorry, we're not going to make it. And I was hoping they would. But it would have been great to hang out with them and kind of pick Donnie's brain some more. But it's not going to happen this year.
I can dig that. We actually, Todd and I have friends that Dustin and Shane, the gentleman who owned the Angry Girlfriend variant comic book, that I think you're at least vaguely aware of. They've been conversing with Donnie Cates because he wants to purchase that book from him.
Oh yeah.
From them. And I hear through the grapevine that he's just as genuine of a person as can be whenever you're interacting with him that way, as he would be just shooting the breeze in the comic book aisle with you in the LCS. We talking about dollar bin whispers and stuff like that. And you said you're a collector on a budget, as Todd and I both are, except for on the very rare occasions when a deal is just insanely too good to pass up.
Yeah.
We have a subsection in our Facebook group that we affectionately refer to them as the dollar bin dirtbags, and that they self-christened that way. And so, what is, if you had to choose, or if you have a story of winning in the dollar bins, what do you have a favorite recollection of a good dollar bin find?
Well, I'm just gonna say it. I find copies of Rob Liefeld autographs on books in the dollar bins from his runs on Image Comics and stuff like that. I just recently I found, what was it, I think Youngbloods, if I'm not mistaken. Was it Youngblood?
Yeah.
He's mixed up for the Image, but I think he did Youngbloods, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Youngblood was his big one.
Yeah, I found number one. It was autographed right there on the cover by Rob Liefeld. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. It's sitting in the 50 Cent box. Same thing with I always look for old 90s Image books in the dollar bins, because people just flip right through them. Okay, they don't even take a second to look at them. And I'm always looking for the autograph. And sure enough, I will find an autograph of Jim Lee or Eric Larson type thing. Mm-hmm. And they're there because, trust me, those guys signed a lot of those books back in the 90s, man, and people forgot about them, so they're sitting in those bins. But I have found those left and right autographed by those guys in the 90s, and their signatures are very easy to find or identify, and it's pretty easy to tell if they're legit or if they're not legit. So I'm always looking for autographs, and I usually do pretty well. I think most recently I got Avengers, I think it was 694 or 84. It was the first appearance of Immortal Hulk.
Nice.
I can't remember if that's the right issue, but I found that for 45 cents. and that's like an $80 book. And sometimes you get lucky. I mean, I went diving today and I found like 3 or 4 books that were all $20 books in the dollar bin. And I was like, oh, great. You know, so it was a good day. But I'm always looking. They do tend to dry up. It's like,
Yes,
I
they
went
do.
to the shop that I normally go to quite a bit, and it's the same stuff I've seen for quite a while now. And it's literally like 50 boxes of 50 centers. And I was like, yeah, that's been in there for a while. And every now and then I can almost sense it. It's like, okay, I can look from the top down and say, oh, that's a new section. That wasn't there last week.
Yeah.
And sure enough, I'll flip through it and there it is, you know, and it's just some independent books that he gave up on. He's like, I'll just put them in the dollar bin. And I'm pulling like Empty Man #1, which I think just spiked. And that was in the dollar bin today. Yeah, that one right there. So I found 3 copies of that.
I picked that up for $1 a month ago because it's a Cullen Bunn book.
Yep.
And it's for my daughter. But we went LibraryCon and he autographed. This is the funny thing about it, okay? And I'm just going to talk a little bit about Cullen Bunn for a second because I just recently saw him. We had a solid run of his Sinestro stories that I had found in dollar bins. And then Venom and The Tick. And then this, I didn't get this one signed. I meant to. And I'd messaged my daughter and said, I don't know why I forgot it. I forgot it. I'm a bonehead. And then I saw the Key Collector Hot 20 list.
Yeah.
There it is on it, bigger than all get out. And I'm like, well, next time we see him, I'm hoping that here in November, there's another con coming to town that's a first-time con, hoping that he comes to that. It's Southwest Missouri Microcon, put out by the guys who do St. Louis Comic-Con and stuff like that. They kind of go all over the state and will put on comic conventions here and there for local places. Just, you know, anyway. So I know that they were in talks for him coming. But so worst case, I'm hoping maybe I bump into him at a comic shop or something. Yeah. But yeah, all of those dollar bins, in my opinion, dollar bins give you the best return on investment.
Oh yeah.
You might only turn a dollar book into a $5 book, but your return on investment is huge there. Whereas Todd and I have talked with folks before about what their biggest investments were in comic books, and it almost never ceases to amaze me that we will all put in $100, $200 into 1 or 2 comic books in order to either keep it, and then the return on investment, you look at it down the road and it kind of just stayed put.
Yeah.
But or you'll put $200 into a book thinking that you'll flip it and make $200 or $300, you'll double your money or whatever. Inevitably, you make like $100 on it. You know what I mean? I mean, at least that's my opinion. If you're doing it for speculation or investment, is that kind of one of the reasons why you stay that way in the dollar bins, or how do you see investing in dollar bins? I guess is the best way to see it.
For one, I'm really cheap. It's really that. I'm really cheap, and I just don't. I went and had lunch with a buddy just the other day, and comic book collector. He recently bought a book for $10,000. Okay, one book, 10 grand. I would never even consider buying a book for $10,000. I have a hard time spending $50 on a book, on one book, and I can probably count the times I've done that on one hand, where I've spent more than $50 on a book. I always look for the deal. I'm a low grade guy myself. I don't mind a lower grade comic because it is cheaper. And like you said, the return is a lot higher. I'm in a very lucky part of the country where I live. Oregon, Portland area, there's a couple publishers that you guys are aware of. Image Comics is here in Portland. Dark Horse Comics is here in Portland. One thing that's really cool is Dark Horse has their own comic book shop. It's called Things from Another World. They get tons of books. They do not sell back issues. If it doesn't sell, they mark it for half off, and whatever it is after 2 months, you can just buy it type thing. They don't care if it spikes. They don't care what the thing is. They sell for cover price or half off cover price. Perfect example. I go in there the other day, and for some reason I look on the shelf and there's Walking Dead 192 still sitting on the shelf, and there's multiple copies, and that's a $20 book right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And this is just like last week, and I didn't grab them. I was like, oh, I should have picked them up, because I went home, I checked, I go, yeah, they're selling 20, 25 bucks. I text them on their messenger, and I said, hey, I noticed that you had these on the shelf. Do you still have them? And their response was, yeah, how many do you want? And I'm like, well, can you give me all three? She's like, yeah, sure, come on, get them. They're in your box right now. They're waiting for you. So I go in the next day. They're waiting in my box. Not only are they there, but because it's 2 months old, it's half off the marked price. Plus, I get a 25% discount. So I paid $1.50 for each one of these books. That sells for $20. Now, the return on your investment for that is like 800% type thing. You know.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And, it'd be stupid not to, take advantage of that situation. I have things like that pop up on my end because of where I'm located all the time. Because I don't know of too many comic shops who like, oh, this Batman is coming out, and it's the death of, I'll just spoil it, it's the death of Alfred type thing. And all of a sudden this book is spiking for $15, $20. This comic shop, they could care less. They're like, I don't care. They just put all the copies out there. Once they're gone, they're gone. Because they're in the business of just selling what they have, and they don't do any markup or any back issues. And I'm very lucky to have that
Absolutely.
right down the street.
Absolutely. And actually, that sounds like the exact opposite of the way that a couple of shops around me have gone. As far as we have a friend out in Glendale, Arizona, Jesse James Comics.
Mm-hmm.
He does exclusively back issues. Nothing new at all. It's all back issues. But I think it comes down to the fact that I think comic shops need to kind of specialize one way or the other.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like with that shop, it sounds like they've got their business model in place. No back issues, only new stuff. Move units, man, move units. And if they're not moving, mark them down and get them moved anyway. Whereas a guy like Jesse doesn't have to deal with Diamond Comics at all, doesn't have to worry about an order being shorted or damaged or any of this other stuff. Only back issues. Whenever somebody walks in with back issues, they know what he's going to pay him per book, and so his business costs are fairly fixed, and he moves units that way too. But yeah, man, that's really lucky to have a store like that.
Yeah, and I think that it's a business model that only works when you have a dark horse as your backer type thing. It's not a business model that would work very well for a mom and pop shop, because let's face it. I mean, there's no comic book shop owners that are getting rich opening up a comic book shop. It's just not the market. There's a lot easier things you can do to make a bunch of money, and opening up a comic shop is not one of them. So
right.
The only way that business model works is if you're backed by, a big company like a Dark Horse or whatever. And I've talked to them many times, and they say that they're, that's just a piece of their business. They say they sell more trades than they sell anything else. I mean, they sell 2-to-1 ratio trades as they do new books.
Wow. That I have a couple of trades, and I have them for reading. And I look, we're proponents of people reading their comic books. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say I don't have any slabbed books. I definitely do. So, mainly books that are slabbed that you can get a facsimile of. You can get another copy of in a retelling, much cheaper. Still read the exact same story, but that's interesting to me that their business is 2-to-1 in graphic novels, because I don't see a lot of collectability in many graphic novels.
Yeah, that store is not really meant for the collector as far as like probably similar to how we are type thing. It's really meant for the reader going in and wanting to read the first 6 issues or 5 issues of the Beyonders by Aftershock type thing, or wanting to read the whole trade of Stranger Things from Dark Horse type thing. That's what they specialize in, and people kind of accept that that's what that shop is. And then they also sell new books as well. Now, just right down the street is a more typical, or what we're normally used to for a comic shop. It's got a bunch of back issues. They got new issues, some pops, some cards type thing. And of course, if something's hot, after they take care of their box customers, they'll tend to mark the stuff up. And I don't have a problem with that. Once you take care of your box customers and stuff, and whatever you have left over, and that the going rate for that book is double cover, then I have no problem with the comic shop selling it for that price, because they've already took care of the people who have already ordered it. So the rest are walk-ins type thing.
Right. And look, Todd and I are both at heart, we're capitalists, man. The fair market is one of the greatest tools available to mankind, in my opinion, as far as just generally overall, but specifically in comic books for us. That now I know most people are not fans of people marking up same day issues, but the truth is you allow people to mark stuff up because there is a demand.
Yeah.
That keeps that shop in business. Unfortunately, I have a local shop to me that was on Bleeding Cool news because it was closing up shop.
Yeah.
And the reason that they said that they were closing up shop was pull customers opening boxes, them ordering stuff, and then people not showing up.
Yeah.
Well, I had a little bit of an issue with that, and I'm not going to go into it a whole lot. But suffice it to say, like you said, it's tough for comic book shops to make a go of it. They close up all the time. The comic book shop that I consider to be my comic shop is a mom and pop place, and the truth is they both work jobs outside of the comic book store to pay their bills. I mean, that's what I gather. I know for sure that they're working outside the comic book shop too. So it's almost like the comic shop right now is still kind of more of a hobby for them, but they're willing to do it because they love comic books. They love the community so much. They're willing to make that sacrifice.
Yeah, it's a passion. I mean, there's not too many comic shop owners that, I'm going to open a shop to make money. They open it because they like comics and they grew up with comics and they have a connection with those books type thing, and that's why they open a shop. And I hear that a lot. I hear, oh man, I'm a big comic collector. One day I want to open my own shop, type thing. Nobody's like looking at a business model. Okay, how are we going to make money? Okay, I heard there's this thing called comic books. Maybe we should open up a shop and sell those things. That's not how a comic book shop is open.
I will tell you that I highly recommend going back to anybody who's really interested in the conversation we're having right this minute. Go back and listen to the podcast we did with Jesse James, because that cat is on it as far as, yes, he loves his comic books, but he is one of the very few. He's probably the only one I've actually heard say, I'm a businessman first. I got to make money on this first. And then if I get to keep a couple of comic books, or I get to enjoy a few comic books too along the way, yeah, I'm okay with that. But like you said, 99% of the time, that's not the mindset at all of comic book shop owners. And we love them for it, but also we see it. If we're being objective, we have to say that that's a weakness of some comic book shop owners, is they're fan first, business people second, unfortunately.
No, I agree. I have a local guy that, I've had conversations with him, and he'll go and make his order for books, and he'll look at covers, and he'll order covers that he likes. And I can guarantee you, I'm like, dude, that's not the cover that's going to sell that book. it's the one that you don't like is going to sell that book. And he won't hear it. He's like, oh, I don't like that one. I'm just going to go with the one I like. And then he gets, 20 copies of this book and he sells 2. And the other 18 people are like, hey, do you have that other cover? And he's like, no, I didn't order it. So, I mean, you got to look at it from a business thing and say, what are majority of the fans going to like or going to want? And that's what you need to order.
You got to at least hedge your bet some, at least.
This is getting a little bit depressing with all this, with this comic shop talk. So, Bueller, when I was growing up, right, I had a paper. I started collecting comics, right. I had a paper route. I'd ride my bike down to the comic book shop. I'd pick up comic books. I lived in Buffalo, so I'd have to ride through like snowstorms and stuff. Can you tell us a little bit about your history, like with comic books?
Absolutely. It's very similar to a lot of people. I remember I got a $2 allowance every Saturday. And I lived out in a little country town. It's called Canby, Oregon. At the time, it was hardly developed at all. And I get my $2. I'd hop on my bike. I'd ride about 5 miles into town. It was downhill on the way there, so it was great. Uphill on the way back. I'd get there, and $2 would buy me one of those 3-packs. You guys remember the 3-packs that we used to see and we'd always try to sneak and peek and see what the book was in the middle. And we could, I think that's X-Men or whatnot. I'd buy one of those, a soda pop, and a whatchamacallit candy bar, and I'd have 1 quarter left to go play track and field at the arcade next down to the drugstore. That was my routine for years. I mean, from like 5 years old to 7 or 8, that's what I did every day. And it was like West Coast Avengers, X-Men, or Batman or Spider-Man. And I'm always peeking to make sure I don't get a double on that 3-pack, because I didn't want to. Little did I know I probably should have took the double of X-Men 94 or something like that, But that was me. That was me as a kid. And then somebody told me, look, when you're looking for comics, look for the ones that don't have a little symbol or a barcode in the corner. That means it's extra old. It's an old book. So then I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to look for these books. So I found like a book. It was a Commandi. I believe it was Commandi was the book, and it didn't have a little barcode in the corner or a little symbol. I was like, oh man, this must be worth something. It wasn't worth a thing. And of course, what we all did, we always looked in the middle of the book and we saw the Mile High Comics ad in the middle, the yellow thing. It would tell you how much you could buy the books for and how much they were worth. I'm like, oh man, look at that. That's a Amazing Spider-Man number 129. It's worth $4. That's a good deal. Hopefully I can buy that or something like that. But I always looked at that. Now, as I got a little bit older and in my teens, and you guys can see this rack right here. And you guys might be familiar with the story. There's a story about this spinner rack. And this was a spinner rack that was at a local drugstore when I was like 13 years old. And I went, and one day, this spinner rack was out in the dumpster on the side of the building. And of course, I'm on my 10-speed or whatever it was. I yank it out of the dumpster, and I throw it on my bike, and I ride home with this spinner rack attached to my bike. And I'm so excited to have a spinner rack of my own and put my books on there. Flash forward another couple of years, say I'm 15 years old. I was really into the girls, and the spinner rack in my bedroom just didn't look as cool as it did a couple of years earlier.
Yeah, so shocker, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I take the spinner rack, and I don't know why, but the crawl space underneath my parents' house was located in my parents' bedroom. And so I opened the little crawl space door, and I jammed that thing underneath the house. I just jam it in there and roll it off into the corner, and that thing is underneath the house. This is in 1990. Well, no, this is in 1992, I believe, or 91, like my freshman year in high school or something like that. So I turn the page. I'm not in the comics, okay? 1996, my parents sell the house, all right? Everything's moved out. I'm not even thinking about the spinner rack. About a year ago, I find a picture of my bedroom. And in that picture, I see my old spinner rack, and I'm like showing it on one of my videos. I'm like, yeah, I remember the spinner rack. I remember throwing it underneath the house. And somebody made a comment, I believe his name was Metarog, and said, you should go back to that house and see if it's still there. And on a whim, one day I'm like, you know what? It's not too far away, and I'm going to go find out if it's still there. So I went, knocked on this house. I literally haven't been up to the doorstep since 1996. I go up to the house. This very attractive lady answers the door, thank God. And I go, hi, and I introduced myself. And I said, this might sound bizarre, but when I was a kid, I used to live here, and I put something underneath the house. And she stops me. She goes, did it say comic books on it? And I go, yeah. She goes, yeah, it's still there. So
Awesome.
she goes, when me and my husband bought the house a few years ago, we were looking underneath it, and my husband said, there's something down there that says comic books on it. So she invites me in, and sure enough, I'm in her bedroom. 10 minutes earlier, I was knocking on her door, and now I'm in her bedroom, opening the crawl space, looking underneath the house, and there it is after 30 years. It's still there, and she's like, go ahead and take it. She loved it. She thought the story was great. It's a video called Hunting Down My Childhood Spinner Rack. It's on my YouTube channel. It's one of my favorite videos.
I think I vaguely remember that, but it's been quite a while since I watched it. It reminds me of just good times, man. That's good times whenever I've got a comic book that is that way. I bought it like 2 or 3 years ago, traded it away for a higher grade. It changed hands like 4 times in that time period because it was graded, and it was an Adam Hughes Power Girl cover. And then finally it circles back and it shows up at my house. I'd made a listing because I have a flea market booth, and when I buy a collection, if I'm spending more than a couple of bucks, normally I'm buying a collection.
Yeah.
And the price point per book is such that it makes sense. Anyway, that book shows up back at my house, and I'm like, that's amazing. It is the exact same book because it's graded, and you can tell it's the exact same book. I'm like, well, I kind of have to get this book back because you brought my book back to me. What is it going to take? And we did a little haggling, and next thing you know, he's walking away with a stack of books that he liked, and I got this book back, and I'm like, well, I guess you're never leaving my house again. You're supposed to be with me.
That's awesome.
Oh yeah, dude. I know you talked about Comic Tom. You and him, you both do Comic Karma, right?
Yeah.
Are you both doing that?
Yeah, we both get a lot of stuff sent our way. And I mean, I'm flabbergasted by, for one, the stuff that gets sent my way that I send back out, and then the stuff that gets sent my way that people are like, hey, this is for you. I want you to have this. I've gotten my grails, if you want to call it your grails in your collection, because of what people have sent me. I like a Hulk 181 is a book I always wanted. I never thought I would ever buy it because we talked about a little earlier, I don't spend a lot of money on books. But one of my viewers sent me a copy as a act of kindness type thing. And not only did he send it to me, but he didn't have it. He went and bought it and then sent it to me. So he spent 4 figures and then sent it to me type thing. It wasn't like it was in his collection. He had an extra one. He went and bought it. I'm looking at my wall right here, and a good half of the books on my wall are ones that people have sent me who've enjoyed watching my content type thing. And it's awesome because I always, I tried to get the guy to autograph my 181. He wouldn't do it, and I don't blame him. But
I wouldn't have done it either.
Yeah, I totally understood it, but I tell people, hey, if you're going to send me some books, do me a favor, autograph one of the books, because it's not leaving my collection. It's personal. It's for me. It's, if Joe Smith wants to send me a book, I tell Joe Smith, just sign. You can pick the book. It doesn't matter what it is. It's not the book. It's the fact that you sent it and it has your autograph on it. So I have a nice little box of literally ones that are autographed from my viewers. And those are my prize possessions.
That's awesome, man. You guys talk about Comic Karma. With our Facebook group, because it's called the Collector's Corner, we have a hashtag Corner Strong that we use internally, that we're going to try and start using externally as well on YouTube videos, and kind of just to show each other the reach that we have as a group. And one of the things that we've only been around for 2 years as a group. No, I'm sorry, we're in our third year. We're in our third year of being around as a group. But we do Christmas exchanges. People send each other care package. It's amazing to me, the care packages that get sent out. There's a gentleman that just today posted that he picked up 2 of those Oblivion Song statues. Picked up 2 of them. He's like, I'm not keeping these. These are going out in care packages. I'm like, that dude, I gotta tell you, that's just silly. Yeah. That's just silly. And Michael knows who he is. Michael, he does stuff like that. But we have other people that do stuff like that too, where I love that even niche collectors will find other niche collectors, and they're not looking for a trade. They just send it out. Everything's cool. And yeah, I'm with War Dog on the Oblivion Song. Send me one of those. I'm down. I've been down with I no joke. I've been down with Oblivion Song since day one.
Me too.
I got on that one. Love it. I actually told I drive a service route all over Southwest Missouri, so I have one comic book shop. It's called Another Comic Shop in Springfield, Missouri. They're my comic shop, but I deal with, man, probably 10 comic book shops throughout Southwest Missouri, here and there. One in Branson, they had a stack of Oblivion Songs, number ones. I bought every single one of them, and they said, well, we think this is a hot book, we may reorder. When they reordered, and this is something where I think people have kind of figured this out by now, when they reordered, they got all pink signatures on their Oblivion Song number ones. I bought them out again because they were like, well, but I only got through there like every 2 weeks. So whenever I bought them out a second time, it wasn't like they were like fresh on the shelf. It was, hey, I haven't seen you guys in like 6 weeks now. They're still there. Yeah, go ahead and ring me up on all of those. And just hung on to them because I had faith in that property, which is good now. But yeah, like Oblivion Song stuff going out in care packages. I believe that people have gotten the Infinity Gauntlets. The big, nice Infinity Gauntlets have gone around. Yeah, a couple people get their Grail books occasionally, and you're just like, dude, I can't even imagine. I can't imagine it. It's awesome, the generosity that comic book nerds have between each other.
I'm still waiting for that pink signature Oblivion Song, John.
Come on, John, get on the ball, man.
You forgot about me, man.
I did forget about you. I won't forget about you much longer. You know, we were talking about Todd's Kickstarter and stuff. I mean, Todd did it right, man. Whenever he did his Kickstarter, I got the 4-pack, and then as a bonus, do you get in with many Kickstarters, Bueller, as far as that goes, supporting them or just kind of getting into that scene at all?
You know, it's something that I get hit up quite a bit about it, type thing. And honestly, I don't know too much about how the Kickstart type thing works. I guess maybe I'm just showing my naivete or whatnot. You know, I need my kids around to kind of help me out and stuff when it comes to things like that. But I do get a lot of people send me messages about, you know, hey, we're doing a Kickstarter for this book or something like that. And the one thing I don't do a lot of on my channel is I don't do a tremendous amount of reviews on books. A couple of different reasons. And that's another thing with the Kickstarter, because I'll get people, hey, well, I want to send you this book if you can review it for our Kickstarter and people can see it. For one, I don't like giving away the plot, okay? And I find it very hard for me to do a review without just ruining the whole book. Because let's face it, we're looking at a 22-page book with very little text. And how do you make a video or a comment without just explaining exactly everything that went on in the book? It's very difficult to do. And so I've tried to do it. I've actually made videos that have never seen the light of day of me trying to review a book without giving it away. I haven't been able to do it. But I do want to get involved in more Kickstarter stuff because there's some pretty interesting things that are out there. And I know my buddy Tom, he's involved in some of the things, and we've talked about that and featuring doing kind of a 1-2 punch for some Kickstarter campaigns to where they'll see it on his channel, they'll see it on mine, and we have a pretty broad reach. So
Yeah, absolutely, you guys do. And I mean, it's one of those things where and the only reason I asked that is I was bringing up Todd sent out as a thank you with all the packets above all of the stretch goals and those kind of things, a blank cover to go with too. It's one of those deals. I believe that Kickstarter is the wave of the future.
yeah.
I hate to harken back to it, but again, it's very fresh in my memory with the panel that Colin Bunn did and the guys who did they did a Kickstarter called Graveyard Slaughter. So they did the Kickstarter for it. So there's a Kickstarter version of the book, but they're also going to be soliciting it for distribution as well come closer time to Halloween,
Yeah.
which that's perfect time for a horror book like that. Anyway, basically, and we're not just talking just him, but several other people who collaborated on this book with them, artists and writers both, are of the opinion that DC and Marvel are not really equipped to go where the comic book industry is going.
Yeah.
As far as they're behemoths, they're huge. They're definitely entertainment companies for sure, but the younger audiences, not as much as we all love superheroes. The younger audience is looking for something more in the horror, sci-fi, real world type stuff more, and less spandex, less superpowers, more. I don't know that to be 100% accurate. I can only go off of anecdote, and that's I know that younger folks like my daughter are definitely more into that than they are the capes at this point. But anyway, long story short on it is that I believe that Kickstarters are kind of the wave of the future because the creators continue to own the intellectual property.
Yeah.
And because they own the intellectual property, they are not beholden to shareholders or any of the corporate structure. They're taking it directly to me, you, Todd. They're taking it directly to our listeners. The only people they're beholden to is the story and the readers, and that's it. I think I really do believe that is the wave of the future. If not Kickstarter directly, some type of crowdfunding on a print-on-demand type basis.
Well, I think you're right. And honestly, it's kind of the hip thing to do. It's kind of like it's cool. Oh man, you got a Kickstarter. That's awesome type thing. I mean, it's very trendy at the moment type thing.
Absolutely
and,
is.
There's a lot of independent creators here in my neck of the woods because of Image and because of Dark Horse and stuff like that, which are, right down the street. And so there's a tremendous amount of creators that are local, that work for them and also work for the big publishers. I mean, Brian Michael Bendis, who does Superman, lives about 5 miles away. The head writer for The Flash lives 10 miles away. There's a big majority of creators that live in Portland, and it's dubbed like Comic Book USA, this Portland type thing. That's one of the reasons Image came back here. It's the reason why Dark Horse is here, Oni Press is here, all these other independent publishers have headquarters here in Portland type thing. And I meet these people all the time. Like just the other day, I ran into Nate Quarry, who is a UFC fighter, and he's retired, but he fought Ultimate Fighter. He was the team captain. He was the coach. He was main eventing UFC fights and fighting for the championship. He's a comic book guy, and wants to talk about his comic book. And he has a comic book called Zombie Cage Fighter. I talked to him about just the other day, and he's like, I go, are you self-publishing? He goes, yep, I'm doing everything myself. You know, he's already got the first issue was done years ago, and now he's working on a graphic novel, like a 6-issue set. And that's what he's doing right now. And, you know, we shared a story about our childhood, like what we did earlier, you know, when we were younger. Very similar story, you know, going down, riding his bike, getting a book, you know, X Factor was his choice. And he shared that story with me, and I shared mine, and we instantly bonded right away. It's like, we're comic book guys. Mm-hmm. And so he's going to be on my show talking comic books. I mean, this guy fought for the championship in front of 20,000 people. He doesn't want to talk about that. He wants to talk about comic book. And I think that's awesome, you know, because that's what I want to talk about.
Right.
It's very cool.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and we, you know, we've had like Karen Nicole has been on. She's AZ Power Girl. She's I hate to say this because I know it again. It'll offend somebody, I'm sure, at some point. But it's the truth is not everybody who cosplays is actually into comic books.
Yeah.
She's a legit comic book lady. Like she colors comics as far as some indie books. She broke in with comic books first, then decided to do the cosplay, and lo and behold, she looks like Power Girl. So, what a happy accident that is, you know. But
it's funny you say that because my niece, she cosplayed, and she asked me who she cosplayed as. I go, are you serious? She had no idea what costume she was wearing, but she cosplayed and didn't know who it was. So I'm like,
I mean, look, I'll give new people, and the other thing too is if they cosplay and then find a way to get into comic books, do it. Whatever vehicle it is to get you into comic books. You guys talking about riding to the store to get your comic books. Whenever I was young, I was not a reader. I didn't like to read. I was not good at reading. Yeah. But the way that my folks got me into reading was they bought me a couple of comic books. They got me subscriptions. At the time I was into sports cards pretty heavily. So they got me subscriptions to like price guides and stuff like that. And that's what developed a love of reading in me. And so, yeah, man, any vehicle that gets people into comic books,
yep,
I'm good with. I like that. I enjoy that.
Yeah, I did all my book reports in school based on comic books. I just changed the names.
That's amazing.
Every single book. I remember doing a book report on Arkham Asylum, okay, for the Batman Arkham Asylum book. I did my book report for English class on that book, and I just changed all the names. It wasn't Bruce Wayne, it wasn't Joker, it was like Joe Smith or, you know, John Jameson or whatever, you know, I just made stuff up.
I wish I had been that original, man. I wish I would. I was not that original to do stuff like that.
All right, guys, we're coming up on the time, so let's get some final thoughts here. We can wrap this one up. Don't want to keep Bueller too long. It's so awesome to have you, though, man. I'm like geeking out over here, so I'm so appreciative. I just want to say.
Well, hey, you know, this is a lot of fun. I mean, I could talk comic books for hours. It's one of the only things I can do for hours upon hours. All the other stuff I can't do so well. But comic books, sorry, ladies, but comic books, I can talk for hours. So I appreciate it.
Hey, gotta find that right lady who wants to talk comic books for hours. That's what you gotta find. My wife puts up with my comic book talking for hours, and it's a cure for her insomnia, is what it is. So yeah. I would like to say a quick final thought, or at least segue into this, because I don't want to let this go unsaid. Bueller, you do Bueller boxes. explain those to us real quick, and that will be my final thought. I want to give that time to you because you've been really gracious with us, and I think we have some listeners that would be interested in what Bueller boxes are.
Okay, so a Bueller box it's a catchy name for one. Obviously, the Bueller box. It's basically a mystery box of comics, and of course, I'm Comics with Bueller, and of course, I'm going to stick those together. But what it is, it's a mystery box that is a budget box. Okay, and I'm talking like there's a lot of mystery boxes out there that range in price. $30, $50, you name it. My box is $10. Okay, it's $10. It's 10 books, and that's it. And it's all gonna be name titles. Because of what we talked about earlier, and my access to newer books at like pennies on the dollar. I put a lot of those books in there. Pretty much everything I find out in the wild goes into these boxes. And the really neat thing is you'll get a box and that you just paid $10 for plus shipping, and you'll literally get books that are still sitting at the shelf at your local shop for cover price. And they'll be in that box, along with some older ones as well. The one thing I do with my box, and I think I might have been the first person to kind of do this, and it really meant a lot to me to do it, is I get a lot of people send me books, for AOKs and stuff like that and donations. And the ones that I get sent to me and I say, hey, these are for your boxes, those are all extra books that people get. So you will get the 10 books that you pay for, and then you will get extra books that are donated. And not only do you get extra books, and just so everyone knows, sometimes I run out. So sometimes there's not, there's no donated books because I sent them all off. But I've had, I'll show you guys this, and it's actually sitting right here. This was a donated book just this week. And this is going to go in the box, and this is going to be given away free in one of the boxes type thing.
Corey Pamel, you better be watching this because I know you're looking for one of those. Just saying.
So my next round of boxes, this will more likely go out in those boxes. Now, what I do is when I send out those bonus books, they're separate. Okay, they're like in a separate package, and there's a label in them, and they will say these books were donated by Robert Galvin. He's a fellow comic book fan. You can go check him out on Instagram. You can go check his YouTube page. So everyone knows whose books they are because I give them all the credit. All the credit. I'm just the middle guy. I'm just shipping out the books that they send and shipping them out and doing the work type thing. But all the credit goes on them for what they get. And some other people started doing that type thing. But it was really something I was like, from the very beginning, I want to do it like this, to where almost like a trade type thing. I remember I was on a video, and it was there was like 4 people in the chat, and the 4 people in the chat, they didn't know it, but every one of them bought a Bueller box, and every one of them had donated books that they have donated to the boxes, and every one of them had each other's books, and they didn't even know that they did. It's like, hey, so you guys know, Don, you have one of Robert's books. Robert, you have one of Steve's books type thing. And they're like, oh, that's awesome. And they had no clue that because they just know the names on the channel. They don't know the name behind the person type thing. And I thought that was awesome. They sell out quite a bit. I mean, I don't have any for sale right now. And really, it's just a supply type thing. But you can find them on my eBay. It's Bueller's_bargains. And it's called a Bueller box, and there are fake ones out there. I've sold over 1,000 boxes this year. I've shipped out 12,000 comic books out of my front door, and of course, there's going to be people who try to duplicate that. So
that's when you know you've arrived, when people are bootlegging your idea.
Yeah, it's pretty funny, And at one time, there was like 6 different ones out listed. They all said Bueller box, Bueller box, Bueller box. It was literally, they just copied and pasted my thing and put it on there. I've tried to make it a point to tell people, make sure it has my profile name, Bueller's Bargains, and it has I'm pretty proud of the fact that my eBay rating is 100%. I've never had one single negative comment or nothing. Everyone's been very satisfied with what they've got. So make sure it does say Bueller's Bargains when I do have them for sale. And I don't. Hopefully, I'll have another round next week.
Right on, right on. Well, man, we really appreciate you joining us to record this.
Awesome.
You said hopefully more than once. Just so you know, you've got an open invitation. We have rarely had any guests that don't end up with an open invitation. But yeah, man, absolutely open invitation. You want to come back anytime, please feel free. We'll be glad to have you. It was great talking comics with you this evening, Bueller. Todd, you got any final thoughts for us, man?
Yeah, just you just listen to all the hard work that he does, and I've checked out your videos, and I mean, I know that's a lot of hard work, man, because I've done stuff like that too, and I appreciate that, and I want, if you haven't, one of the best things that you can do for any of us that post things on YouTube is subscribe and like our videos. Just by, you don't even have to watch every video. You just have to just subscribe. The more that we can get, the more that we can get involved, the better it is. Bueller, I appreciate everything you do, brother, and thank you so much for joining us, man. This was awesome.
Awesome. I had a blast. Comic Book Theater. First appearance. True first right here. Thank you, gentlemen.
True first.
It was awesome.
All right, brother. Thank you.
Have a good evening.